Hey guys, Micah here at the Russell School of Ministry. I want to talk to you about profession, occupation, vocation, and job. A lot of times we use those words similarly or interchangeably, right? Are you in professional ministry or occupational ministry, vocational ministry? As you're kicking off your schooling here, maybe people are asking you that question. Hey, what are you planning to do afterwards? How are you going to use that degree? Are you going to be in professional or occupational, vocational ministry, etc.? And it's a fair question, and I'm open to however you decide to answer that. But I wanted to at least give you some thoughts as we get started on this orientation about the difference between these things and what we're saying when we use any of these words. So a profession, we would say it's, if you say, well, I'm a professional, sometimes that has positive or negative connotations, right? Sometimes to be professional is like I do the work, I show up, I do the work, I'm reliable. I treat this like it's really a calling, really like a job, right? I don't just I'm not flighty. When you meet a minister or a pastor or somebody who's unprofessional, it's like, ooh, that's not good. But at the same sense that there is something about this where it's like, man, this ain't just a job. And if you've been around ministry for long enough, you know it ain't just a job. If all you're looking for is a job and all you're looking for is a degree that helps you get a job, this is probably not the degree for you. Ministry is probably not the career for you because it's never going to be just a job. It's just not. And so profession, has, as I said, has positive and negative pieces. But what's funny is that that's kind of in our usage today. If you were to go back, 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, and you start going around asking people, hey, what's your profession? What's your profession? A lot of the people that you talk to would say things like, oh, I'm a Christian. That's my profession. I'm a Christian. And to profess, profession is really just a lengthening of to profess. What do you profess? And that is, I think, a really key question as we talk about what it's going to look like to dedicate your life to what you're dedicating it to. What is it that you profess? What do you believe? What do you say out loud? There is a thing for me, especially early in my ministry, where I really didn't want people to know I worked in ministry because immediately everybody treats me different, right? So you go to the store, you go to a ball game, you go to whatever, and somebody starts up a conversation. They say, "So what do you do?" And then you say, "Well, I'm a minister." Then one of two things happens, right? Either A, they'd say, "Oh, how great! I go to such and such church. Do you know it?" But 90% of the time, what they do is they get really awkward and are afraid to cuss. Right? And I mean, I'm not against less cussing in the world, but that's not what I'm here for, is to, monitor your word usage. And so early on in my ministry, I was just real careful. I was like, I work in whatever. I would come up with, ways to say it. But what is it you profess? What do you stand for? Right? That the development of this over time is that people began to work for guilds and they would profess their guild, right? And so there's a sense in which your profession, what you profess is your guild, is your community, is your people. And that became the usage that we use today. So if someone says, hey, are you a professional? Are you in professional ministry? What they probably mean is, are you getting paid? But I would encourage you to think real deeply about what is it that I actually profess? What do I actually stand for? What do I say out loud? Right? What do I profess? So then you say, well, it's occupational ministry. I hear this less now, but this used to be a pretty standard way of talking about things. Hey, are you going to go into ministry as an occupation? Right? And I think, okay, well, in a sense, yes, that's great. I love people being in occupational ministry, paid or unpaid, right? But again, if we kind of take the root here and we just look at occupy, right? What do you occupy? What do you occupy? Now, in a sense, like ministry occupies our time, right? But occupy has kind of taken on new old meanings for a while, recently, as you've had like the Occupy movement and stuff like that. And that's really about taking space, right? You're taking space. That's really the historical view of occupation. An occupation is a time when somebody is occupying space. And that is actually, in a really deep sense, what we are doing. And that's one thing that you really want to not get too far from, is that we are taking ground for the kingdom of God. Jesus says, the gates of hell will not prevail against my church. And gates are defensive weapons. They're not offensive weapons, right? Gates don't advance on us. We advance on gates. And so we believe that the kingdom of God is advancing, right? Forceful men have taken hold of it, Jesus says. And so the kingdom of God is advancing, and the gates of hell will not prevail against Jesus' church. And we get to be a part of that advancing movement. And so we are, in a very real sense, we are occupying the ground outside the gates of hell, right? Trying to get people from going in, trying to get people out, right? And so there is a sense that you have to have in your calling of saying, this is my place. I'm not responsible for everything that happens in the world, but I am occupying this space, and this is my responsibility, and this is what I'm going to do. And then as we get into vocation, right, the other big word, voca for vocation is the Latin word for call. What is your call? And this is really what I think it gets to. What is your call? What is the calling on your life? Now, a lot of times we mean, if somebody says, are you in vocational ministry? What they mean is, do you get paid? But in most cases, a lot of times, I mean, most might be too strong, but in a lot of cases, when we talk about somebody's vocation, what we're actually talking about is that's the thing that you would do because it's so important to you that you would do it even if you weren't paid. That's your calling, right? And so I have a calling on my life that I'm very clear about. I know what my calling is, and if I was not paid to do it, this job that I have is pretty close to it, so I'm able to kind of operate in my calling. But if I wasn't paid to do it, and at times in my life I haven't been, then I still keep doing it. This is what I'm going to do. So if you're an artist, if you're a painter, if you're a poet, a lot of times those types of creative endeavors, you say, man, I'm a cab driver by day, but I'm a poet, right? Or I'm working this construction thing, but I'm really all about my band. That's my calling. That's the thing that I love. That's what I would do even if I could never make money at it. And so you kind of have to know for yourself, like if I couldn't make money at this thing, would it still be worth doing? And that's if you can't say yes to that, then ministry is not a vocation for you. It's just a job. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a job, right? Or capitalism is what capitalism is, right? So we all got to make money. We got to pay the rent. And so I am for a lot of people that are watching this video will end up or maybe are already working with ministry as a job. And I'm great with that. I think that if you get the opportunity to give the best 40 hours a week to your church or to the kingdom, then you should really look seriously at that. There was a point earlier in my career when I had kind of had a really brutal experience of leaving a church and having had a brutal experience of getting told to leave a church, right? And I tried to figure out, like, man, do I ever want to go back into that environment? And I'll never forget a conversation with my dad where he said, look, I said, I don't need to get a paycheck to be a minister. I don't need a paycheck to make disciples. He said, no, you do not. But if you can give the best 40 hours a week to the church and to the kingdom, that's a really cool opportunity that a lot of people don't have. So you should take that seriously. And that was kind of what led me back into that and back into this. So that's plenty from me. But I want you to think about, what do you profess? What is the space that you occupy? What is your calling? And then does that or does that not tie together into a job? So you're going to do an assignment that's kind of related to this, where we talk about, hey, this is what I think my calling is. This is my profession, my occupation, my vocation. So just let that frame your thinking, both for this next upcoming assignment and also just for the conversations that you have with people as they say, what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do to make money, right? What you're going to do to make money is a job. And I'm not against that, but that's not the same thing as profession, occupation, and vocation. All right, thanks. Talk to you soon.